Keep it going. Very, very loud.
That was really fun.
Fun, huh?
Yeah.
Little project.
So first off, just thank you for sharing this with us early. That was that was awesome. I made some notes and wrote some stuff down. Forgive me, but one of the things that I had read about this before tonight was somebody saying that it was one of the first like anime translations just unapologetically anime, and I agree. Like there's so much really great that like I haven't seen other live action versions of stuff like that. Do you want to speak to it?
I mean, who here loves anime and manga, right? And when I was working on it, I realized, my kids love that stuff. So I thought, God, they're gonna dig this because it's gonna bring it to life in a way we've never seen before, photoreal. And when I when I first heard about the project, it was about, I think 2000 and 2001, I saw a story that this was gonna be Jim's next movie. It had a picture of Jim, it had a picture of Alita, and I purposely stayed away from the manga because I thought it'd be out in a couple of years. I didn't want to know how it's gonna end. But when I finally saw what he was gonna do with it, he was gonna direct this before Avatar in 2005. He had written the script. He hadn't quite cracked the script yet, so that's why he ended up going and doing Avatar instead. But he'd always meant to come back and do it. And I met him about it, some years ago, like 2015. Just as social, I've known him 25 years. I was just having a social lunch with him, and he was showing me all his artwork from the avatars he was going to be busy with. I was like, holy shit, this is going to take you a long time. When am I going to see Battle Angel? I've been waiting for that for 15 years. He goes, I don't think I'll have time to do it. But you want to see what I was up to? Shit, yeah, I want to see what you're up to. So he showed me several scripts he had written. One that was, he said, this was, I think, the best script. It's really long, though, but I think this was the one I wrote. So I want to read the one that you wrote. It was 186 pages. And he gave me 600 pages of notes that went with it. He said, I thought he was joking. He said, I won't show you 1,000 pages of notes. I'll give you 600 of them. So that was funny. And then it really was 600 pages of notes. And then he showed me an art reel. Now, Jim always does art reels where he does concept art, and then he cuts it together with narration and music, and you can watch it. He showed me Avatar before he made Avatar. It was like 15 minutes long, and you got the whole story, and you saw what he was going to do. It was kind of like a condensed storybook version. He had that for Alita. It was about 8 minutes long. The first image I saw that really just stunned me was the one at the very beginning where she was looking at her porcelain arms with an engraving, and she had the large manga eyes, but it was a photoreal painting. And this was like, he was going to do this in 2005. I mean, there was like no technology for this. That's Jim. Bold, 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 10x bold. And I just thought, that's just so compelling to see a photoreal version of, we've been seeing manga eyes since the 30s, and Astro Boy, never photoreal. And he always does something visually that you've never seen before, whether it's the water pot in the abyss or, the T-1000 liquid metal. And that's what this was going to be. So that was table stakes. I had to just do that, because now, this being 2015, we'll have to just forge ahead and see if it's even possible to make someone that looked that human. He did an Avatar, but those were aliens, and then he did, Planet of the Apes would have did that, which was fantastic, but they're apes. We hadn't seen a face. So I thought to do a face, but in the style of a manga and anime, fans of manga and anime are just going to flip out when they see that, because it's like they finally went into that world and it was real. And it's truly stunning. That was one of the biggest questions I had before I did this. I wonder why Jim was going more and more into these I was wondering when he was going to come back and do like a Terminator 2 or something. It was more real for real. He was getting more and more into building these worlds. And now I know why. When I saw the first shots come back of that last tube scene, it's right out of the manga. But now it was photoreal. And we only shot the boy's head on a green screen, and just to get the head element. So I'm like, when did we film that? And we're looking at it and just going like, holy shit, it's like out of your dreams. And I could see why he likes to make movies at this scale and level. because you're seeing things that you could only see in your dreams as if you were there, and you can do just about anything now. And it's really intoxicating because it's the first time I've ever felt on a movie like I was actually an audience member more than the director. You know, when you're directing a film, you kind of know what you're doing. You see it on the set, and then you see versions of it in the edit room, and it comes to life a little bit more. But not this, where every shot would get back, I would feel like an audience member, just my jaw on the ground, going like, holy shit, that's amazing. And so it's really fun to see a movie like that.
How much of that like photoreal was already there in the 8-minute stuff that you saw, and how much of it was
not like that. It was not
just like do it, figure
it out. If you compared it, you wouldn't know. And this was one of the biggest things I learned from him. I'm glad I knew him so long. I'd known him before Desperado. In fact, when I went to show him my cut of Desperado at Lightstorm, he said, "Hey, well, I watched this. You've seen it. You want to read any of my script notes?" I go, "Yeah, sure." So you're Spider-Man. Oh shit, I'm gonna read the Spider-Man script note. And, this is another thing called Avatar. So I read Avatar script note in 1995. Wow. So I remember thinking, this is great. I don't know how the hell he's gonna do this. That stuff even exists. It was like, I don't know what this is. But and then I visited him on this. Oh, then I saw the reel. The art reel he did.
Yeah.
That looks just stunning. It's right out of the, you see the pre-production art. That's what they shot, but you saw it early. Still don't know how he was going to do that. Then I visited him on the performance capture stage, which was very new. We kind of take that for granted, but back in 2005, 2006, that was just so bizarre. What is this? And he was doing some performance capture with the stars, and it was Zoe Saldana, and he took me over to a wall, and there was artwork, photo collages of high-res Photoshop collages of faces, like from National Geographic quality. It's not moving images, but you can make that look really photoreal because it's one image.
Yeah.
And he was like, "It's interesting to see when this movie comes out in 3 years if we can get this photoreal. I mean, if we can't get this photoreal, I think it'll still work." Shooting blind like that? It's just unheard of. Now we that's just the process. But I was like, you always see as a director, and I was shooting HD by then, so we have a big screen on the set, so you know what you're getting. Here he's just shooting, hoping that it's going to be somewhat photoreal. But now I know, once I saw the movie and saw it's a leap of faith. You have to just throw yourself out of the plane with no parachute and hope you can build it before you hit the ground. You just got to hope that you can make it there. So this was the same thing. No one had done photoreal face before like that. So I just had to forge through, and it was just about screwdriver work of figuring it out. When you do, I started as a cartoonist, and when you're drawing like Alita, you can make her look good like front. If you do a profile, you might change proportions sometimes. You can cheat a lot. You can't do that in CG. You're building one model for every angle, for every lighting condition. So every time we would come upon a new scene, we'd have to go rework the face. And it was just a whole process of doing that. So you just gotta take the time. And that's, if you want to be on the cutting edge, you have to just have that leap of faith, because otherwise, if you know what it's going to look like already, then you're doing something that's been done before. That's just, Jim doesn't roll out of bed unless he's innovating something. So it's like, it's not worth it to him unless he's doing something that's just never been done before. That's just,
it's weird to think that he sleeps at all. But one of the other things that's kind of anime about it is there's a lot of different places where it wears its heart on its sleeve more than you see in a lot of live action. Was any of that like on purpose and intentional from you, or was it just sticking to source material?
Well, the source material has a very universal story, and something that's people can really latch onto. Really love that about the story. It was a melting pot society. It was allegorical. It was just all kinds of things. But Jim's script in particular went further. He added the thing that the father actually had a daughter before that he had lost. It was just so emotional. When I saw that he was going to do it originally, in that original press release, even though I didn't read the material, just by looking at her and the title Battle Angel, I thought, okay, cyborgs, strong female protagonist, sci-fi, that sounds like something Jim would do. I was wondering what he saw in it, because he usually writes his own material to adapt something. But when I read the script, it was so emotional and so, not what you would expect in a movie like this. But that's what Jim does. That's why it fits. I was surprised it fits so well into the other movies he does. He finds ways to either create or find universal themes that are beyond the genre they're in, you know, much bigger than the genre they're in. So if someone isn't into manga, I don't know what a manga is, or into sci-fi at all, because I've seen this play to all audiences, and they're like really surprised that they just love it and fall in love with her. It plays to audiences all around the world and to any age group. That's just the magic of what he does. So it is much more emotional, heartfelt, and universal and relatable than other movies. And this is where I really had to change how I make movies, because I started as a cartoonist, but he started as an illustrator, much more realistic. Cartoons are more whimsical, and all my stuff's really whimsical. So like a guy can pick up a guitar case and fire a missile from it. And I don't think the audience really needs to know how that works, you know? It's dream logic.
Wait, but while we're on
it. But Jim, that wouldn't fly with Jim. You go, wait a minute, how does that work? How did that fire, how did that reload, how did that not blow up on his shoulder? I don't believe it. It pulls me out of the movie, I don't buy it. And so that's a whole other way of working. Even though we started the same way, I realized that later, because I asked him, and I've said this before, that I wanted to make it a Jim Cameron movie. I meant that when I read the script, it was one of the most clear scripts I'd ever read. Usually I read a script and it's by a writer, it's not a director, so you're reading and going, this isn't gonna work. But this was Jim, like as if he was watching the movie in his head and writing down what he saw. I mean, it was so clear, and it was so visualized already, that I knew I couldn't just go do what I normally do. So I asked him, because I wanted to feel more like that, what I read. So I needed to get more in character, just like I did Sin City in the style of Frank Miller. When I worked with Quentin, I worked more in his style. I wanted to do this more like a Jim Cameron movie, because I, as a fan, wanted to see another Jim Cameron movie. There's lots of Robert Rodriguez movies. I wanted to see there's not that many Jim Cameron movies. So I wanted to see this thing, and I wanted to see it like he would do it, and I read it, and I could really see it. And he told me something I couldn't unhear when he said it. He just went, well, he kept saying, make it your movie, make it your movie. And I would be like, no, but I want to make it like your movie. What is that? What's a Jim Cameron movie? What's his version of this? And he said, well, for me, science fiction and fantasy especially needs to be really grounded, utterly real. Otherwise, you don't buy the fantasy. So I thought, well, shit, we're not going to use any green screen, that's for sure. I don't want this to feel like a Sin City or a stylized manga come to life thing. I didn't want those layers of artifice on it. I want to build real sets, which we built here in Austin, a 97,000 square foot Iron City. Which is still up, by the way, if you want to come visit. I built it to last in my parking lot. It's the largest standing set in the whole United States, because most sets get moved down after the movie. But it was so real and tangible for the actors. Real sets, real locations, real actors around her. She's really biting an orange. It's harder work for Weta, because they got to match her live into everything. Because in Avatar, you don't know what Pandora looks like, so it doesn't have to really match reality. But we know what a table looks like. We know what orange looks like, we know it, so it has to feel, I wanted it to feel more grounded and real, so that you would believe the fantasy. That's why it's just so trippy to watch it, because it is like an anime, manga, but so real that it feels like you're watching a dream.
Yeah, and I was among the skeptics when first images came out. I was like, I don't know, but then as soon as it's like she's moving and she's a person on screen, and I'm with it. And I imagine that a lot of that is the performance. So
it's all performance.
How is the casting?
That's why it's called performance capture, not motion capture. Because motion capture is just the body. The performance capture is this thing where, in Avatar, they just had a standard definition camera. We have 2 HD cameras now to capture depth, and it's really just to get every facet of her performance. And it completely comes through. I didn't know how, it was like, I felt like Jim on Avatar. I was like, I wonder how close they'll get to her performance. Because I chose her because she was just head and shoulders above everyone else. People ask me how you cast sometimes, and it's, sometimes the actor comes in and you hope that happens. Jim and I were even like, we gotta find this title character. It wasn't like there was just someone, oh, it's that person on that TV show. That's the one. You know, we had to find her. And she just happened to walk in one day. And when that happens, it happens very rare in your career, where the perfect actor for a role walks in the door. Sometimes it doesn't happen, and you just have to pick a great actor and just kind of craft the role. She walked in and just blew me away. I mean, I was like in tears as she left. It was so emotional. Usually I give them scenes throughout the picture, so you see the whole arc of the character, from innocence to knowing who she is. So from the innocent, sort of wide-eyed girl to the rebellious teenager to the girl who falls in love, the girl who is the warrior, and then the girl who finds loss. And it was devastating. I was just like, wow, who are you? Somebody had written me once saying, you should work with Rosa Salazar. We like Rosa Salazar. And I didn't know who that was. I flew to Paris because I try to know all Latin actresses. And so he said, I saw her as she was leaving. I said, people have told me I should work with you. And she gave me a very Alita line. She goes, and I would agree. She says she does an ad-lib like that in there where he says, you broke my nose. And she goes, yes, I did. So I left that in because sometimes she ad-libs stuff like that. But she so embodied the character. And you could cast a really stoic actress for that role, and it wouldn't be wrong. She's a warrior. But she was so full of life and so just captivating and could play every facet of it. I thought, wow, she is really expressive. And if the animation could capture even 50% of that, we would have a very alive CG character that you would forget CG. And they got more like 99, like 100% of that performance. When you see the side-by-sides in the making of, every bit of hers coming in. And I remember it was very odd to be on the set because I was just so used to Rosa. And I was like, this is so strange. I don't know what my lead actress is even gonna look like. I'm shooting blind like Jim was on Avatar until 3 years from now. I hope I like her. I hope she's like, does a great, has a very as expressive as Rosa. And when she was finally done, like there were early trailers and stuff to go, okay, we were just starting. We still had a lot of screwdriver work to do before we got anywhere close to the face. When she was finally done and finished shots were coming in, I was like, oh, it's nobody new at all. It's exactly Rosa. She just has different features, different proportions, but her performance comes through so much that they're one and the same to me now. I can't even tell them apart, even though they're completely, you put them side by side, you go, oh, they're completely different. She comes through that much. That's how state of the art it is now.
How does Rosa feel about seeing it?
When she saw it for the first time, she said, I want to see it by myself. She said, I don't know, she knew it was going to be very emotional. She put her in the screening room. She's like, I'm not going to cry. The Fox logo comes up. Ah! And she watched it and she was like, I loved it, it was amazing. But that thing I do with my mouth that just annoys me, I do it in that scene. And we're like, you realize you're critiquing your performance through Alita, that's not your mouth. It's like, oh, I guess we did our job. That's right.
Can you call in and change that little part?
Yeah, she saw every flaw and every asset, it's all there. So she was stunned, yeah, and I'm stunned. I asked Jim what he thought, and he said, it's a stunning film. Even he can't believe that we got it that real. So that's what's fun about making these kind of movies. Yeah. You as a filmmaker feel like an audience member. You get to enjoy it in a way that I've never enjoyed my other movies before. I'm sitting here watching it just like you guys are. I'm like, what the hell is this? I've never seen anything like this. I still feel like I'm dreaming as I look at it with your eyes open.
That's awesome. You touched on this a little bit when you were talking about kind of being aware of it when Jim, you can call him Jim, I don't feel like I can, when Mr. James Cameron was first attached to the project in early 2000, but were you a fan of Alita before, or did you start by reading his script and then kind of discover it?
Yeah, no, I stayed away from it, and then when I read the script, I went back, and I was just so stunned by the story. I was not expecting it to be that it had that kind of world building and Cameron stakes. When I then went and read the graphic novel and all of that, I saw that, he took from book 1 and 2 and a little bit from 3. I grabbed some more little pieces from other ones as I went through, and I was doing like a little rewrite on it. But it was great. I really love those kind of graphic novels and comics and manga where it's the same person writing it as drawing it. Because you can see a comic and someone drew it, someone else wrote it. But like Frank Miller, Koshiro, it's like a complete vision, all the way through. It's from one person's brain. It's like the equivalent of a writer-director. It's like a Jim Cameron who writes it and directs it and totally sees it. So I really enjoyed reading, and there's so many other stories that, and places that it goes, just incredible world building. People have compared, they said, that ending is very Titanic. I said, well, you drew that before Titanic. That was from '92, so it just is just this coincidence. And Jim hadn't seen it yet until like '99. There's some very similarities to it. But it was just a really complete piece. I really loved it.
Now, I hadn't thought about how that is like the Titanic piece. Yeah. That's eerie. Kind of a two-part question of the working with the original longer script and bringing it down a little bit.
Well, I read his draft, and I was just stunned. I thought it was fantastic. In fact, the point where I realized I wanted to make the movie is when it got to the motorball sequence, because it was like, I was jumping out of my seat, because you had were with that character so long, and he didn't play the sport. Like, the roles went out the window. They're just trying to kill her.
Yeah.
And you care about her so much by then. So you're like, holy shit, this is like Jim Cameron level stakes. Only Jim would come up with a way to use motorball in a way that was never done that way in the manga. Even the biggest thrill was that Kishiro saw the movie a few weeks ago. He was stunned how emotional it was. He didn't realize it would have that much heart. But also the motorball sequence just blew him away. And that it goes out into the streets, he geeked out over his own motorball because he took it into the streets. But he loved it. But I read the script and I called Jim up, because this is what happened. I had lunch with him, he gave me the script, I went home, and he was just kind of joking around. We'd had a 4-hour lunch, and I was like, I gotta let you get back to work. I mean, this thing's going on, and he's showing me Avatar stuff. We're catching up, and seeing each other in a couple years. And I was already in the parking lot, going into my car, and I said, wait a minute, if you're just gonna be doing avatars for the next 10 years, what happens to movies like Battle Angel? And he went, do you have 15 more minutes? Shit, yes. I went and so he gave me the script, I went home ready. He goes, oh look, if you could, I never cracked it. So if you can figure it out, yeah, maybe you can direct it. So I thought, I didn't take that seriously, because I thought, let's see, this is like a really long script. I don't know if we could get this down to a length. It's a new franchise. If it's not like 2 hours, it's never gonna happen. The studio probably wouldn't want to risk it, because it's not Jim directing it, it's me directing it. So that's a whole other thing, and she's, every second she's on screen is very expensive. Right. So you can't really just go and just make it a 3-hour movie like Jim could do. Jim could do that, I can't do that. So I went home and I said, all right, let me read it. So I read it, and I wrote it back, and I said, shit, I really identified with the father-daughter relationship. We don't have a daughter, and that really spoke to me, the girl and the boy. And I related to her. I mean, if I could identify with this 13-year-old girl, that means anybody can, because it's such a universal story. This kid who thinks she's insignificant, but then goes and finds that she has the power to actually change the world. That's a great story. And how many heads do I have to collect to work on this thing? I wrote him and sent it off, and I sat there at home waiting. There's the whole head collecting thing with 100 work. And he wrote back. And Jim this is just how Jim writes. He's just everything's fucking cool, He's just like, you've collected enough heads. Call me tomorrow. Shit. I called him up and I said, I think it's all there. There's no rewriting. You don't rewrite Jim Cameron. It's all in this. It's all there. It's just too much of it. And it's so written so clearly. It feels like I've already seen the movie, and it's just too long to release. So I'm going to treat it like it's already shot footage, and I'm an editor, so I'm just going to go cut the movie down. And where it needs additional dialogue or some reshoots to patch the holes, that'll be basically what my rewrite is. I said, great, want to go make a deal with Fox and let's get you writing? No, I'll do it for free. Because I don't know if I can get even 5 pages out of this thing. I think I can get some, but let me see. I got to cut out 66 pages. So I took it and spent the summer working on it and sent it back to him. And I didn't know this, but John Lando told me later. He said, yeah, he got the script and it was 120 pages. And he said, this is going to suck. And he starts turning, and he called me up right away. He read it right away. It took me so long to work on it. It's like he read it like in 3 hours. He called me up.
Well, you shrunk it down for him. So.
Shrunk it down. But still, it takes me like days to read a script, because you have to picture, you have to take a break, you have to he's just like, called me back up, Skyped with me, he said, I don't know how you sweated 60 pages out of this thing. I played a little game with myself. I was like, every time I turned the page, I was going to cut my favorite scene. No, it's still there. A few more pages. My next scene's my favorite scene's going to be cut again. No, that's still there. I seem to make it from beginning to end without missing any of my favorite scenes. I don't know how you sweated 60 pages out of it. The approach was just knowing him for so long and really studying his films. You would think that he would want the spectacle and the action, but that's not, Jim doesn't care about that. He actually cares more about the story and the relationships. You probably thought I would cut the father-daughter story, or the boy and girl story, or the personal relationship stuff. No, you got to keep all that. I cut action. I combined some characters, like Master Clive Lee was the one with the Damascus sword, not Zapan. So there was a whole other thing where he's the one who goes after Hugo, and she gets the sword from him, and I just combined those characters. Things like that to just kind of bring it down without you missing it. And that's what made me say, let's make it. It was just so fast that he just said that it was like, we're off and running.
And something else that you kept was killing the dog.
Yes.
Was that ever in question? Because
No.
you get into the Kansas and I was like, oh, why is that dog still alive?
Oh yeah.
And, okay, all right.
Dog dies. Yeah, it's an important moment, character moment for her. And look, not science fiction, it's cyborgs. You saw they brought Hugo back. We actually have some footage we're going to release that has the dog as a cyborg running around. Then people would be like, and everybody was like, one of my neighbors over here going, oh, every time she saw the dog, he went, oh, she's going to be so disappointed when she sees the dog. And of course, I found the most pathetic little dog I could. A scrappy little, scruffy little guy. He's still alive. It's really cute when you see his head on the little robo body. I have it actually on my phone. Maybe I'll show it to you all later on the camera's going. I'm not lying.
We'll just attach that phone to the projector. It'll be awesome.
But no, there was, I have to have real stakes, and that's what this thing had. So these are right out of the manga, like, Zapan cut Tanji in half.
Yeah, but he wasn't a dog, so it's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, he had to show, you had to do that so that you knew that there was real danger, and that this guy was merciless. And otherwise, that's what makes it so dramatic. And I felt that when I read it. It was like, wow, okay, he's going that far, then he's not gonna think twice about chopping her up.
That was another thing. I really liked how in that underworld sequence and the main tentacle piece, and she's jumping through it to do the punches in the trailer. And it's just like, okay, well, that's how she wins this fight.
Oh yeah, no, she doesn't win at all.
No.
Yeah, I remember seeing. That's what I love about animes too. That the action is just so crazy. There's a little bit of that grind cutters in the anime version of this that I thought, wow, we can have a lot of fun with that. We can feel like a real manga and anime come to life because you can do it with a 3D and that kind of attention to the detail. It could just be totally hypnotic.
How was the 3D decision for you? Like, was that from the beginning because you're like...
Table stakes again. Jim and I have been pushing 3D from the beginning.
Yeah, of course.
I visited him on the set of the Terminator 2 3D ride Universal shoot. Arnold was there, Sarah Connor was there, Eddie
Worst thing that's
Furlong
ever
was
happened
there.
is Minions taking over that space.
And he was like, hey Robert, strap that on your Steadicam. Huge 65 millimeter double system on a crane. That's the only way they could move it around. Because I was talking about 3D because I wanted to shoot the second half of Dusk Till Dawn in 3D originally. When you went into the bar, you were going to put on 3D glasses. In fact, if you watch the movie, everything comes to the camera in that second half because I was always designed to be in 3D, and the cameras were just archaic. So I actually shot the first digital 3D movie here in Austin. It was Spy Kids 3D, using cameras that Jim had designed for his underwater adventures. So we were always into 3D, and we went around and did dog pony shows together in like 2004, 2005 to get theaters to convert to digital. When I did Spy Kids 3D, there was only 2 digital screens in the whole country.
Wow.
So we had to go convert things to digital and then to digital 3D, just so that it would be ready for Avatar. So when we do this, of course, we have to shoot native 3D because we're the guys who've been plugging that forever, and everything else has been conversion. That's why it's the best 3D you've seen since Avatar, because we shot it native 3D with his newest cameras. They're like Ferraris, and they're so smooth, and you can dial it in. It's not rush at the end, just slap on a 3D filter. It's like conversion movies are today. It's the real 3D experience where every day we're dialing that in shot by shot, and we're watching. They're watching it in 3D on the set.
And then, could we expand on the motorball sequence? I was also thinking, I rollerbladed a lot in the 90s, and I was like, heck yeah, rollerblades are going to be cool again. Thanks, Alita. They are. They were always cool. How was kind of like storyboarding that out and laying it all from.
Again, it was a thing that was so clear in the script, you could really follow it. So my whole thing was, I want that clarity on the screen, because a lot of times you can watch a big action scene with that many characters and you just get lost. And then you unplug emotionally. So I wanted to make sure it was designed just right. We had the time to do that. So I turned the script in at the end of 2015 to Fox, and right away I started drawing out that sequence. And in fact, there's the scene where the guy gets his head knocked off and he goes, "Oh crap!" That's my voice, because that's still from my little animatic. And I was like, "Wait, we got an actor to replace my voice. Why my voice in there?" And they go, "Oh, we liked your voice better." That's how long ago I started. It was in 2015, and I only saw the finally finished last shot dropped in 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So I mean, it took that long to get it to constantly moving stuff around, reanimating things, blocking it out to where you can really follow it, not lose sight of her. So there's a lot of close-ups of her in there, so you never lose sight of the emotion of what she's doing, why she's doing it. And that just takes the time.
Yeah. Well, I think that we are just about out of time. Is there anything else you want to bring up before?
Let me check my notes. So many great stories. Especially working with a master like Jim. He's so, he was here for the bar fight. Oh, the bar fight. The bar fight is a fun scene. So it was such a. If you've seen the manga version of the bar fight, she beats up the guys, and you see like a Katamari ball of people coming out the door and to show that it's the greatest bar fight ever. Then I read Jim's script, and it's like a 12 or 13 page bar fight, right? So I'm going like, I gotta nail this bar fight. So I looked up top 10 bar fights on YouTube just to kind of see, what had been done. So I haven't seen every movie. There might be a bar fight from a movie that I didn't see, and I want to
or from
do
not
something,
a movie, just a bar
do
fight.
something that somebody had already done. I want to repeat something that had been done. And I called Jim all excited. I went, I just looked up top 10 bar fights. 4 of the 10 are ours. Terminator 2, Desperado, Dusk Till Dawn. I guess this is just what we do. We gotta top that. We gotta top all of those. We're adding 2 more days to the schedule, and he showed up. He showed up for one of those days. He had to be there for the fight too, so that was a lot of fun. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing the fight. Was that the question? What was your question?
Well, the question was just like, if any final thoughts. And now the final thought is like, we have a bar downstairs and we can go get do a fight in it. And when you Google top 10 bar fights on YouTube in another year or so,
I gotta tell you something about the
you'll have
eyes.
half of them.
I gotta tell you something about the eyes. So this is what's cool about working with Jim. And Ernest Klein's in the audience. So Ernest can attest to this too. He worked with Spielberg. I worked with Spielberg once too. These guys. You work with guys like that because you want to glean something off and learn some of that. I wanted to learn some of the methods and systems he uses to make the movies that he does, because I wanted to learn how to do that. We both started the same way, from nothing, making movies by ourselves. And he came from the Roger Corman School of Filmmaking. He did Terminator, like rubber bands and popsicle sticks, but now he's making these huge movies. I wanted to see how he did that, because his movies were just so smart. He was just such a genius at breaking ground. I know there must be some methods. And you go and you work with a guy like that, and you realize at the end of the day, after working with him, I know, there's no methods, there's no systems. The guy's just a freaking genius. You'll never get there. Guys like that literally can see around a corner, and you just totally respect that and follow him, because it's like he's been there before. You don't question it. I remember when I worked with Spielberg once, he had this was similar. He had this opinion about something in the script, and no one else agreed with him. All the people around him, his inner circle were like, he's wrong. Like, I don't know, man. This guy's usually can see around a corner. I think we should just do what he says. Because we don't know. Who knows? And sure enough, he was right. Jim's like that. You just got to follow him. He on his desk, he has if you don't know for sure, just go that route. Follow that guy. He has a submarine model of a submarine he designed to break the world record. If you got in a submarine with Jim Cameron to go break another world record, and he says, you know what, Ron? I think we should jettison the air packs because they're going to blow up. I go, yeah, sure. We're not gonna question that. So when we're doing this thing, we're doing the eyes, and we weren't prepared to put a first trailer out. We were just going to put from Cameron, Rodriguez, Alita, but the movie was supposed to come out originally in July.
Right.
So it was like, well, shit, Christmas, you kind of have to have, there's Foxville, you gotta have a trailer with some images. But we don't have her face here, we just started. It's not gonna be that, it's gonna change. Well, we just have something. So we put out the first trailer and people respond, oh, freaky, the eyes are too big. And I saw Jim go through that on Avatar. People thought they just blue people, man. I don't know about that. Once you see it in the context of the story, it makes sense. But in a trailer, trailers were never great. They were totally bizarre because it's just a snapshot of it and the effects aren't done. So I was curious. I said, I wonder if Jim's going to say anything or John Lando. They're going to go like, maybe we should shrink the eyes. I don't know. They weren't saying anything. It's like all this feedback was like, this isn't going to work. This is too freaky. They're just too big. It's uncanny valley and stuff. And I was like, still haven't heard anything. I said, wow, I guess these guys have got balls of steel. They just steamroll ahead. And finally Jim said something. He said, about 3 days later, he goes, you know, you're always going to get this thing about the eyes being too big. I mean, they're not right. We still have to do a lot with their face. But the eyes, it's actually they're not big enough. I was like, really? Not big enough? What do you mean? He goes, well, the irises. I went through this on Avatar. And I was thinking, yeah, but Avatar's alien. You kind of get away with that. And he goes, the irises aren't big enough. The eye sizes, you don't have to change the eye size. You got to increase the irises. The irises have to be bigger. How much bigger? 30%. Really? 30%? You get away with 18 or 20%, but I go 30. I ask everybody around, what do you guys think? Do you think it's just people say something negative and he just like steps on the gas? Or do you think that's right? Even the wedding guys were like, yeah, I don't know what he's talking about. I remember that Spielberg incident. Well, let's just try it, because then we'll try it and we'll look at it, and when it doesn't work, we'll take it back to him and say, Jim, that wasn't quite it either. That was it. And I saw stories online. I saw one funny one where somebody was like, see? They had a side-by-side comparison with the next trailer. We said they were too big, and they shrunk them. And you can see that it's exactly the same size, but the irises are bigger. But it makes it feel like they're smaller. That's the genius of Jim. You can see around a corner. It'll never be that. They're like, bow down, Jim. It's fucking cool.
Very cool. Well, very cool of you to be with us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. What a great audience.